we'll go ahead and start. We have got a few people here. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure you can hear me. Can somebody say yes or no? Somebody?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's take a look at my screen. You'll be able to see what I see, hopefully. And actually, I don't want to do that part yet. I think I said an announcement quiz 4, but we only have one more quiz left. So remember, this is being recorded. So what I'm going to do now, well, before I do that, let's take a look at this. The section doesn't matter. They're all the same. There's 3 sections. If I go to the modules section in this particular class, the Zoom meetings, the one tonight will be posted probably by tomorrow. So that would be right here. You click on that, November 29th. That looks a little messed up. Oh, November 8th comes in. Ooh, November 29th. I'm going to have to mess with that a little bit. That's interesting. Good thing I checked that, but I'll get that taken care of. But anyway, I don't know what's going on with that. Actually, I think I do. But if you go to the modules section and go to the end, all Q&A, test information, and other meetings, and click on that. Right here, of course, this is a couple years old, but it's the same test. So there's the Zoom cloud recording of question and answer, chapter 5 review, November 16th, 2020 is here. If I click that, that takes me to the Zoom website. This, if you play this, there's actually part of the test that's actually shown in here. So you can do that and actually do a screen capture and print out part of that. There's probably a 50-50, there's actually a higher chance than that because there's 160 questions. There's 100 on the test, but it's taken from a test bank of 160. So there's probably about a 60% chance that any question on here will be on the test. Let me, a little board there, see what I'm doing.
What time?
I have no idea when it shows up.
That's 4, I know.
So here we go, test number 5.
That's 4, because I haven't answered that. Because of Thanksgiving.
Okay, anyway, if you watch a little bit of that, you can screen capture this because I show the questions and the answers. Now, whether it comes up on yours or not, like I said, it's probably about a 60% chance. So that's in, once again, that's in the modules section. That's test number 5 right here. So you'll be able to get part of that there. But what I'm going to also do is I'm actually going to go, and remember this is being recorded, so you can view it later when it's posted because I'll go too fast. I'm going to go through, if I go to test number 5 right here, Now it says each of these chapter tests is worth 100 points. It might seem confusing to you because it's going to say there are 96 questions. That means question number 1 is going to be worth 10 points. So I'm going to go to edit. And I'm going to go to questions. On everybody's test, regardless if you take it twice, even if you take it the second time, this will be the first question. So I'm actually going to click. Now remember, like I said, it's being recorded. So I'm going to click edit this question, which no, in fact, this is the one I want to, bear with me. This is the edit button, which should show the questions. Question number 1 is going to be worth 10 points of your 100. And then plus I'm going to go through 80. So that means probably with the 80, probably about 50 of them will be on your test. Plus what I just showed you, you're going to end up having, if you at least look at the reviews, you'll have 2/3 of the questions already there, whether you've done the study guides or not. Now, if you do that and you've done the study guides, you'll have every single question and answer on there. Okay. This question will be the first question. It says, match the term with the most accurate definition. Now, we haven't gone into a lot of detail on this, but in every nutrition book, every professor has got to add extra information, and a lot of it's the same information they copy from book to book. And that's why it's really all the same. But it's part of the publish or perish game. I'm going to go through this fairly slowly. There's actually an actual definition for this. This is going to be a question, and you're going to have to match it. It's not going to appear like this, but this is the actual answer. Polo-vegetarian, a polotarian. Sounds like a polo player. Sounds like a sport. Someone who will not eat the flesh of any red meat mammal, but does eat seafood or products like eggs and dairy from their diet, etc. Vegetarian, remember, somebody that doesn't eat basically meat. So they're actually a polo-vegetarian. They just keep adding terms. There's really 3 terms. There's a vegan, a vegetarian. There's really 2. There's a vegan and a vegetarian. A vegan doesn't basically eat anything that comes from an animal. Vegetarian doesn't eat meat. And then that's basically it. But when you keep adding terms like polo and ovo and semi and lacto, which means dairy, then you can kind of play with the definition. It basically, it's the same thing. It just means that they're adding some subgroup to it. So there's an octo-lacto-vegetarian. Nobody in the world you talk to, if you ask what their diet is, they're going to say they're an octo-lacto-vegetarian. If they do, they got a lot of free time on their hand to memorize a bunch of useless definitions. But anyway, it's in the book. It says that's an ovo-lacto-vegetarian or lacto-ovo-vegetarian. It explains it. Lacto-ovo just backwards. Is a vegetarian who can consume blah, 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 such as eggs. They do not consume fish or other seafood. And that's an octo-lacto-vegetarian. Ovo-vegetarian is a vegetarian doesn't eat meat, but ovo means egg, so it means a type of vegetarian which allows for the consumption of eggs, but not meat. It'll say something like that, but not dairy products and also not meat. It doesn't say that, but vegetarian means not dairy products. So in other words, they'll eat eggs, but not dairy products. It seems redundant because an egg kind of is a dairy product anyway. And then it seems a little absurd that there's an octo-lacto vegetarian, and there's actually a lacto-ovo vegetarian. Aren't those the same thing? Actually, they kind of are, but they're backwards. But anyway, these are the answers that you need right here. So what you do is just, rather than memorize them, just do a screenshot of all of these, and you'll be able to answer these questions. Some of the ones we've talked about to a degree, haven't gone into a lot of detail. This question is actually worth, let me double check on this. It's worth 10 points. There might be more than 10 of these, but it's going to randomly select 10. It won't matter because you'll have a screenshot of it anyway. There's a term vegan. Does anything comes from an animal? I know it says, the definition here is a little bit different. It says a strict vegetarian who consumes no food such as meat, eggs, or dairy, etc. It's just basically you don't eat anything that comes from an animal. Anorexia, it actually should be anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa, but that's what it says in the book. Anorexia is basically, it's almost the same thing as starvation. It's not the same because it's voluntary. The people that are anorexic do it by choice. It's the media, they perceive themselves as overweight and they're really not. So it's a psychological thing. So it has the term nervosa with it. Same thing with bulimia, where you eat and throw it back up. Bulimia is grosser. Anorexia is much more dangerous. Never heard anybody dying from bulimia. I've heard people dying from anorexia. This is eating and just being able to throw it back up. That's literally it. Pescatarian is basically anybody that who eats meat but doesn't eat fish. It's kind of a made-up term, even though it's real, because fish is a meat. So if you eat fish, you're not a vegetarian or a vegan, so they give you a separate term, a pescatarian. That all has to do with the fact that there's kind of this myth out there that you need to eat fish because of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. That's totally been debunked. Although you'll find a lot of people that still believe that. I don't know why they still do. They haven't read the research, or just because a few doctors a few years ago came out and actually said that, because it's complicated. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we've talked about it before, but just briefly, I'll give you a little bit of the history of it. Remember, there's 3 food groups: fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. There's some debate whether carbohydrates are even a food group, believe it or not, because your body can actually make its own. But anyway, that's fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. But of the fats, there's a whole group of fats that you need. Fats are known as fatty acids, just like proteins are known as amino acids. There's 20 of them you need. There's 500 or 600 in nature, 20 the human body needs. You can think of fats as the same way. At the molecular level, they're made of fatty acids. You link a bunch of fatty acids together and you get fat. The more fatty acids you link together, the more complicated the fat molecule is. And so it's circulating around in your body, and cells are small. And they can only take in small things. And so if you've got really large molecules of fatty acids, your body has to break them down. So your body can take in the individual fatty acids and link them together to make its own fat. It does that with protein. It makes its own protein from the amino acids. So that's where they get the term complex fatty acids or simple fatty acids. And that's where they get the term trans fats. Trans sounds like train, means many. And it's not necessarily healthy for you. It's not that unhealthy, depending on what your glucose is, because that's a whole bunch of fats linked together. So your body's got to use a lot of energy and break it down. It circulates around in your body and clog up arteries. And end up in fat cells if you eat too much, etc. So the simpler the fat is, the healthier it is for you. That means the less fatty acids are linked together. And there's that's where they get into the term monosaturated versus unsaturated. Basically, saturated fat means a bunch of fatty acids. It means solid at room temperature. Butter taken out, left out overnight, that all melts, is mainly unsaturated. It's easier for your body. If it's still solid, it's mainly saturated. So it's more fatty acids linked together, so your body has to work harder. It's a whole continuum. It's not just like mono and saturated and unsaturated and then trans. There's all kinds of them. Poly means many. But basically, that's what fatty acids are. And fatty acids are, we need them. Cells, we're actually made out of them to a certain degree. They're stored in our body, but certain structures are made out of fat to a degree. We have fat underneath our skin, which serves a function, not just for excess energy, but for a lot of different things. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just high in calories, and that's what too many of those tends to make it a little bit worse. But some of the terms on here that we've mentioned are so ridiculous, but they're in the book. Flexitarian. If you ask somebody what their diet is and they tell you they're a flexitarian, I'd almost laugh. I mean, what does that mean? You're flexible? But it means you eat anything when you want, what you want? That's not a term. But yeah, it's in the book. A person who's primarily a vegetarian diet but occasionally eats meat. A person who is primarily vegetarian but occasionally eats meat. That's anybody, I guess. But anyway, and then there's quasi-vegetarian. That's another stupid term. People who think of themselves as vegetarians will occasionally eat meat. So if you just think of yourself as a vegetarian, but you still eat meat, then you can call yourself a quasi-vegetarian. I don't know, some professor at some ridiculous university put that in there, and all of a sudden it ends up in the book. Binge eating disorder is another made-up term. I know doctors use it all the time. It says a serious eating disorder in which you frequently consume unusually large amounts of food and feel unable to stop eating. Okay, the last part of that I agree with, unable to stop eating. But it's misused and misapplied a lot. If you told somebody you ate once a day and it was a really big meal, they would actually say, oh, you have a binge eating disorder, which is absurd. You do not. If you can't stop, you have a disorder. But you won't. Eating once a day, you're going to feel really full after you eat a decent amount. I can't imagine you just keep on eating until you're sick. But remember, on nutrition, how much you eat makes the difference, some. What you eat makes a difference, some. But how often you eat makes the biggest difference. And we've talked about this before. When I mean how often, I'm not talking about 6 to 8 little meals a day. That's not necessarily a good eating pattern. It's bigger meals, but less often. That's what the research says. Anybody that understands cellular biology and diabetes and cancer and hormesis and apoptosis and autophagy, and numerous Nobel Prizes and everything else that goes in the body understands this. People that don't understand hormesis, which I think actually is on here. Remember, hormesis means stress that creates strength. Eating once a day does create a little bit of stress. It drops glucose level a little bit, not a lot. And some people more than others. But if it goes down too much, that's a disease. That's hypoglycemia. You got a disease going on. It's not because of eating. It's a disease. Diabetes is high blood glucose. But anyway, that drop in glucose level will cause some stress to a degree. Shouldn't cause much. But if you're not used to doing it, it may cause some hormesis, stress that creates strength. And that's what makes you stronger. It reduces cancer, diabetes, weight, improves vision, improves autoimmune function, improves immunity, helps fight off disease, etc. We're designed to eat that way. We're not designed to eat 3 meals a day. I don't care what everybody tells you. We are not designed to eat that way. Can you be healthy and eat that way? Yes. Will you be can you be normal weight? Yes. Can you live a long time? Yes. Not as long as you would the other way. Heredities determine that, but you will live longer if you go to 2 or 1 or every other day. That's just a fact. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail again, because we've already discussed this before. You've watched several videos on it. Kwashiorkor basically is, they're all on here, so I'm not going to read them all, but Kwashiorkor basically is you're not getting enough protein. It's a really rare condition. You're getting enough food, but not enough protein. You'd have to have a strange diet to have Kwashiorkor. You'd have to eat nothing but, I don't know, celery or carrots. To avoid all protein is almost impossible, because it's in a lot of plants and vegetables. It's possible. Marasmus is just starvation. Marasmus and anorexia are not the same thing. Same results, but anorexia is voluntary, and marasmus is just starvation. It does exist in the world. There are places where there's not enough food, but worldwide, there's more of a problem with too much food than too little food. That's actually a fact. Now, the food's not the problem, it's the consumption of the food. There's actually enough food for everybody in the world. It's just the distribution of the food. It's not even. And so that's where you run into the problem. So if I go into, so we've done that, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a little preview. So I'm going to go back to the test. And what it's going to do, it's going to randomly select 100 questions. I'm going to go through 80. I'm going to do preview. Now, chances are it's like a 60% chance you're going to get this question. I know you're going to get the first question. So there's 96, because remember, not 100, because the first question is worth 10. So that makes 96 questions. I'll make 95. Maybe it should be 95. 10. I don't know, but anyway, whatever. I think it's 96. What else through here? Yeah, 96. I went so fast through that, you could actually probably slow it down and just view all 96. Basically, there's the first question. See, I randomly selected. So there's question number 2. It may be on your test. There's a chance it will be. There's a chance it will not be. What question will it be? It may be number 2. It may be number 57. I'm not sure. But so what's the point of doing this? Well, the point of doing this is that's the exact question. And these are the answers you have to choose from. So you'll have your study guide. The study guide only has a question. It doesn't have this kind of stuff. So I'm going to kind of go fairly fast. Let's hit. I can't remember how many I said. I'm going to Might have said more, but I want to do about, because I think I did 40 or 50 in the other one. So I'm going to do another 40. We're going down through here. Now remember, what you can do instead of writing it all out, you know, screen capture is called print screen. If you hit print screen, you might only be able to get one question at a time. I don't know. I'm using widescreen. You print screen and then you open up Word and then right click and paste it. And then just save it and print it out. Because it'll take them, and that way you'll and then you just answer them and just have them there along with your study guide, and you'll be okay. So like I said, I'm not going to sit here and read each one of these to you. That's why I make these open book, because like a question like this, I wouldn't even know. I just have to look it up. Approximately blank of children worldwide are overweight or obese. God, I have no idea. I'm going to say it's high. I'm going to say 28%. To be honest, I don't know. But it's in your book. I promise you, it's in your book. I'm guessing this, but it might be this. Because they're talking worldwide. In the U.S., it's closer to like 40%. But this term obese, it has many different definitions. And it's based on, they use body mass index, and it's based upon height and weight. Body mass index is not accurate for pregnant women or athletes. Technically, they say if you're 10 pounds overweight, you're overweight. But if you're a guy and you weigh 180 and you're supposed to weigh 170 based upon your height, like you're 6 foot, and they weigh you and you weigh 180 and they say, oh, you're overweight, yet according to the chart, you're 10 pounds overweight. I don't know. To tell somebody they're overweight when they're only 10 pounds overweight is a little ridiculous. Technically, but that's what they say. Obese technically means 50 pounds over your normal weight. So a girl or a guy, if you're 50 pounds overweight for your height and your age is factors into that also, then you're obese. Morbidly obese technically means 100 pounds or more overweight. So if you're supposed to weigh or like if you're a girl and you're 120, supposed to weigh 120 based on your height, yet you weigh 220, you're morbidly obese. So in other words, morbid means life-threatening. But once again, they throw around a lot of terms. It's more complicated than that. Overweight has many different definitions. When you're talking about health and longevity, I'm not necessarily talking about fitness. When you talk about fitness, when somebody says fitness to me, I don't equate it to athletics. I equate it to health. Athletics, yeah, to a degree, fitness matters in some sports more than others. In soccer, it matters quite a bit. You can't be extremely overweight and be really good at soccer. But I know some sports you can be somewhat overweight and be good at, like in football, like a lineman in football. Maybe there's muscular, but a lot of them are overweight, big stomachs and stuff. Well, it's sumo wrestling. I mean, you have to be overweight for that. Golf, you can be overweight and be a professional golfer. There are some that are. Baseball is kind of in between there. Tennis, my sport, I've known some overweight tennis players that are actually good tennis players. Now, they're not necessarily fit. They may be athletic for their sport. But then again, that's a term that's used rather loosely too. What does that even mean? Athletic? I mean, it depends on who you ask. What does athletic even mean? Fast, strong, quick, smart? I mean, they use the term athlete when they talk about pool players. I find that comical. They use the term athlete when they talk about golf. I don't consider golfers athletes. If you play golf, I'm sorry, I just don't. To me, golf is a skill. You need to have good dexterity and good timing and all that stuff. That's a skill. But if somebody said, well, if you could only measure one thing for athletic ability, to me it would be no instruments. You can't have a club or a racket or a ball. That's where you're getting into the skill. Pure athletics would be just like speed. That's my opinion, like in the 100-meter dash. It doesn't matter how tall, how short you are, it's just speed. That's nature. Like an animal trying to escape a predator, the speed would matter. But then you could get into like, okay, what about the mile run? What if you're better at the mile run, but not as good in the 100-meter dash? I said you'd be better off being fast in the 100-meter dash. That way you get away from the animal quickly. But then there are some animals, like wild dogs, that run for miles to chase predators down, even though they're slower animals down. So anyway, the term athlete, they're just like arguing. Can you play in the NBA and be a bad athlete? No, because the skill level is so high. But you have a ball, so it's athletic ability, but it incorporates skill too, the handling of the ball. So, and tennis is the same way. Tennis is some athletic ability, but it's getting a lot toward the skill side of it. This is a debate. That's like people just want to argue. Does it really matter? But when it comes to, so there's 40 questions. So when it comes to fitness, weight, I think, is ranked about 5th in correlation. You don't need to know this. And when I say correlation with what? With longevity and health, because those two go together. People say, well, you can be unhealthy and live a long time. No, you can't. If you have heart disease when you're 40, you're not going to make it to be 80. You're going to die early. So they are related. Health and fitness are related. And health and longevity and fitness / health are related. So but weight was either 4th or 5th. I can't remember. The number one factor that determines how long you live is the one thing you have no control of, which is heredity. It's based upon how long your parents live. Now, that doesn't mean if your parents were unhealthy and smoked and didn't eat right, that you're destined for the same fate. No. But if you inherit genes for cancer, heart disease, and diabetes and stuff like that, you can't control that. You can't control the genes, but you can control whether those genes turn on or not. Remember, with nutrition, eating less often keeps the bad genes that you're programmed with off longer. If you have genes for heart disease, you have genes for cancer, you have genes for lupus, you have genes for diabetes, which is, it's lifestyle and it's also inherited. It's kind of in between. It's not type 1, type 2. That's the way they classify it. There's in-between types. But if you have the genes to have diabetes, it runs in your family, you're not born with it. You can get it early. There's juvenile diabetes, but those genes are in there, those cards. Well, if you practice good nutrition, you can keep those, don't play those cards. You keep them turned off. It's like you're dealt a bad hand. And they know that calorie restriction, eating less, keeps the bad genes turned off longer. I can even name the genes. They've identified about 80 of them, and they've studied them. But they've also found that eating less often, without actually eating less, mimics calorie restriction. So you don't even have to eat less. You have to eat less often, and that's true for losing weight. You can tell somebody, you actually don't have to eat less. Just don't eat 3 meals a day. Eat your meals in one meal. In one big meal. It probably won't be as big as all 3, but less often creates more hormesis. It gives you time to tap into fat cells for weight. That takes about 18 hours, 24 hours. And then your weight's coming from fat cells. That's true weight loss. Plus that's hormesis. Your glucose level is a little bit lower when you eat, which does a lot of positive things for your body. Now, it may do some negative things at first, like I said, headaches, I don't feel good, I feel tired, etc. That's, once again, that's more of a withdrawal symptom than it is a sort of a health condition a health thing going on. And that's, so I'm going to turn it off, screen share here, put it back on the, whoops. What am I doing? Hold on, bear with me. Oh, screen share. Stop share. Okay, so you're gonna find, like I said, we don't have much longer to go in this meeting. We're gonna all take the little test here in a few minutes. Then I'm gonna do the video and record it. So, I need to go back to screen share. Let me go back. To show you on the grades, I'm not trying to zero in on anybody's grades, so please don't pay attention to this, but I need to, because I'm going to scroll through grades really quickly. I mean, I guess you could go back and say, oh, I saw your grade, but most people in class are pretty ethical. So let's look at, it doesn't show the average over here. Now on the grades, this is what I see. Let's look at this week. You have this conference thing worth 15 points. You'll get all 100% tonight. You have test number, you can't read it all, but it's 5. And you got the whole week to take it. So, print out everything we went over, print out the thing I showed you, have your study guides. You should do fine on it. If you don't, then take it again. And then there's these 2 little videos. This is really interesting. You'll love this one. This is talking about a vegan bodybuilder. He's actually a vegan, but he's a world-class bodybuilder. A lot of people, I've taught weight training for years, and a lot of people in bodybuilding think you need to eat all this protein, etc. Watch this video. It's very interesting. And then there's one on cancer and nutrition. We've had a couple of those. These aren't hard at all. This is a free 10 points. It's just your opinion of the class. I don't even read it. And you say, oh, you can make comments. Oh, I like this, I like that. Maybe less of this, more of that. It doesn't matter, but as long as you do it, once you do it, it will say 0. Once it says 0, then I change it to a 10 because it says out of 0 because it's worth 10 points. So you get 10 points just for doing it, but it'll show up as a 0. Then I'll give you the 10. So once I see that you've done this, the test mainly, this, and this, then you have the final exam left. And I can't remember when it is, sometime in December. You got the whole week to take it. Without having, so people don't get confused on this, and I've sent a message. Without having taken the final exam, I'm going to, it says out of 300. Now grades are given in percentages unless they're bonus points. Like this will say 10. It won't say 100%, it'll say 10 because that's bonus. This will say 50%. I'm not going to enter 150, but that's the same thing as 50%. It'll say 50% straight down the line, whether you've taken it or not. Now, don't freak out. That's not your grade. However, if I enter 50% and you scroll back to your name and you notice, hey, with that 50%, I still got a 90 average or a 92 average, that's an A in the class. You don't have to take it unless you want to take it and raise it to a 94, but it doesn't make any difference. They might actually lower it, so why take it? But let's say if I enter a 50% and all of a sudden you look at your average and you go, uh-oh, it's like an 88. Say, nah, I want to raise it to a 90. Then you can still take it twice because that 50% doesn't count as one of your takes. I've had people say, I didn't take it, and all of a sudden I have a 50%. Well, that's because they didn't watch the meeting or whatever. But I used to just enter a 0 if they didn't take it, and some people actually still had an A. But then I started thinking random guessing and just knowing a few of the answers will give you 50%. So I said, if somebody doesn't take it, I'm going to give them a 50. I'll give them 50%. And for some people, it might be a B. Let's say I enter 50% and your average is like an 80 or an 81. And you can play with the numbers. There's a called what if. And you say, what if I made 100 on it? And if you made 100 and it raised your average from an 80 to an 88, that's still a B. Why would you take it? I would just say, okay, an 80 is a B because Valley doesn't do pluses or minuses. This is for your benefit so that the only reason to take the final exam is if it can raise your grade, or if you don't take it, if it lowers your grade. If it has no effect on your grade, up or down, there's no reason in taking it. Valley has a rule, you cannot exempt anybody from the final. So I'm not really exempting you from the final. I'm just saying if you don't take it, I give you a 50. I give you 50%. And there will be a number of people that will still have an A with 50%. I can tell you right now, there might even be a few people that might actually, if I entered 50% on test number 4 and 5, would still have it. But I don't do that on test number 4. I've had people, though, that didn't do this video or this video or this, and they entered a 50%, and they still had an A. But I wouldn't do that with these two because these aren't hard, and they don't take very long to do. And I don't really enter the 50% until I see all this other stuff is done, including this bonus thing. You can do that. Well, see, this week is only these two things. Actually, that's incorrect. This week is just this. That's this week. So test number 4 is actually next week. Test 4 and these two. So you got plenty of time, and then the last week is these 3 things. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. All that's due this week is what you'll do tonight. So you don't have to worry about test number 4 until next week. It's not open yet. And I don't want to open it early because that way it gives you you got plenty of time to print everything out and get everything ready. So that by the time 2 weeks from now, you got this week, next week, and the week after, you can wrap everything up for this class. Let me double check on this. It's number 4. When is it open? Yeah, it's available December 5th, so it's not open actually until then. Okay. So that's kind of the format for the rest of the class. And this is the last of our meetings, so I hope you remember some things about nutrition. Always double check what anybody says, including what I say, but especially including what your doctor says, or your dietitian, or what somebody else tells you. Because I've studied this stuff and researched it for years, and I've changed my beliefs on a lot of things. And you're going to find a lot of people that are going to disagree with you and argue about blood glucose level and hypoglycemia and anorexia and starvation, and you need protein to build muscles, and without it you don't build muscles, and if you don't eat for a while, your body eats its own muscles. None of this is true. And it's dangerous not to eat for a while. That's completely incorrect. It's dangerous not to eat probably about 6 weeks. 6 weeks to 2 months, you could starve to death, but for a day or 2 here or there's nothing dangerous about it at all. Nothing. It's extremely healthy. It's very healthy for kids, especially overweight kids. A lot of that is due to heredity. if I had an overweight child, I'd try to help them by definitely having them eat just twice a day rather than 3 meals a day. I grew up in a family where they never served breakfast. My dad was a doctor. He's a retired doctor, he's still alive. He didn't know much about nutrition, but our family just never made breakfast. I never really wanted it either. And I actually think that was a healthy thing for me in the long run. He didn't do it because of what he understood. I just don't think they wanted to mess with it. But that, to me, that's a healthy thing to do. If there's a meal you should skip, that's the meal. Regardless of what teachers may tell you, what other people may tell you, because your glucose is dropped a little bit. It's not dangerously low, but you're burning from fat cells in the morning. That's weight loss. Your glucose is dropped. Apoptosis is taking place, programmed cell death. You actually have more energy, not less. If you eat a full breakfast, you feel full. That induces sleep. Now, I mean, you may feel like you have more energy. It's because your glucose went up. But in reality, after a while, you'll feel sleepy. It's the opposite of what people tell you. And there's nothing wrong with it either. But to get in the habit of getting kids to eat breakfast all the time, then you have breakfast, and then you have lunch, and then you have dinner. That's 3 meals a day. That's too many. That's too many calories if you eat 3 meals. That's not enough time between meals, even if they're, quote, healthy meals. And now, if you eat 3 small meals and you got the willpower to do that, that's okay. You can be somewhat healthy. But once again, the glucose level needs to oscillate more, not just a little. That oscillation creates the stress. That's what you want. Like heart rate on a treadmill gets high, then you rest, it's low. When you work out hard, it's high. You rest, it's low. That creates stress. That's hormesis. You get sick, antibodies build up. Not so sick you die, but you get really sick, antibodies build up, your immune system becomes stronger. That's oscillation versus staying healthy all the time, like the boy in the bubble, and avoiding all viruses and bacteria will actually make you sicker because your immune system doesn't develop properly. Never working your muscles and your bones, lifting weights, walking, running, anything. That stresses them. That's hormesis. That stress creates strength. They've even studied poisons that do this. Some trees weren't producing fruit. They actually gave the tree a little bit of poison, and it bloomed. It started producing fruit. They thought, that's weird. You think fertilizer would do that? That's because the tree became stressed, and it interprets that like it might die, so it wants to reproduce before it dies, so it makes flowers and fruits. They've done this with animals. Not so much poison that it damages you or kills you, but it changes your metabolism. It actually makes you stronger. That's stress. They studied all kinds of things. They studied vision. One eye is really bad compared to the other. They patch the good eye and force you to look with the bad eye all the time. One study looked at 6 weeks, and they found that the bad eye improves tremendously, more than anything you could ever do. Because what happens is you're forcing yourself to look with your bad eye, and that changes the muscles. The muscles work better. It forces you, that hormesis, to use that eye more. What happens is with 2 eyes, your dominant eye will take over, and it'll become stronger. Your weak eye will become weaker. That happens to everybody. That happens with your ears. We're bilateral. That happens with everything. They've done studies in athletics, in tennis, nonetheless. They had people that were right-handed practice left-handed. They could barely hit a ball, and they had to change the coordination and the way they did things and really concentrate. It improved their overall tennis game, even though they played right-handed. Not that they played left-handed from then on, but it improved their right side because it made their coordination, their overall body coordination better. Once again, that's hormesis. So don't think of stress necessarily as a bad thing. So let's wrap this up. Let's look at the quiz. If you got yours module open, let me go to quizzes. And I'm gonna record this and post it probably by tomorrow, maybe not tonight. I'm tired tonight, so by tomorrow, so you can go back and print it out and look at stuff. Because the test 5 is not till next week anyway. But if you want to get it done and sort of out of the way, but for tonight to get your 100% for this is the 29th, right? Yeah, okay. So let's look at this. This is what you need to take. So if you got a pen, write it down. If you got it open, you can do it now. If I go to edit, questions, I could write them down myself first, but I didn't. So question number 1 is going to be 312. Make a note of that. Anybody not here is going to have to watch it and figure this out. Question number 2 is 711. Question number 3 is 318. So make a note of that. So what you'll do when we finish here, which we're almost done, is you'll go to modules, whatever class you're in, and you'll go to this week, and that's the only module that has points beside it, so that's the only one that has grades. You click that, and you take it, and 100% should show up. So that's a good way to start the week. It'll raise your grade a point or two, not a lot, but a little bit. Okay, guys? So I'm going to wrap everything up. If you run into any problems from now for the rest of the class, send me a message and I will reply. I'll post this meeting by tomorrow. It's good seeing you. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.